Doom. A game so baked into the FPS genre that there are still people making documentaries on its influence in modern-day gaming. And as of yesterday, Doom the Dark Ages released in spectacular fashion, allowing us to once again rip and tear our way through Hell's minions with a new medieval twist. I cannot express the hype I had for this game, as like the Slayer's power, I simply couldn't measure it by the end of the waiting period. However, rest assured that id Software not only met that bar, but threw it even higher with this masterclass of an experience. While I do have some criticism, and the game is steeped in a couple of controversies at time of release, overall I am massively satisfied with the experience that has been provided. Having completed a 100% playthrough on Nightmare difficulty, and now working on the Pandemonium mode without alterations to the difficulty via the sliders, I can definitively recommend this game to both new and veteran players alike. I played the game primarily on my PC, but have also dabbled into the console version of the game on PS5. My PC is running an AMD Ryzen 9 5900X, 64GB of RAM, and an Aorus 4070 GPU. Throughout all of my playtime, I have not experienced a crash, stuttering, or loss of fidelity in any shape or form on either PC or console. I applaud id Software on this technical feat among a slew of games that have been released with rampant issues from other studios. This goes without saying, but from this point forward, I talk on points that may be considered as spoilers, so with that being said, if you do not wish to risk spoiling portions of the game, please click off the video so I don't ruin the game for you. I will not be talking about important story moments or pivotal boss fights, and all of my footage is taken from the first 6 chapters of the game. But I may mention something in passing that could potentially spoil small details, so click off, come back, we'll wait for you. It's cool. Visually, the game is stunning. We see titans clashing with mechs adorning the background, and for those that take time to look, entire armies are on their way in the backdrop of levels like the Siege. There's so much to look at, one could easily get lost in the details of the environments that id have placed us in. Stunning fire effects, ruined buildings, debris, strewn across battlefields make you feel as if you were in an active war zone storming through it. Sci-fi castles and ships are masterfully designed to clash with the medieval aesthetic of much of the game, though most surprisingly, it has incorporated elements from Doom Eternal into the backdrop, such as the towering Necroval, beaming Argent energy into the skies that the Makers had already betrayed the Sentinels, bringing forth the desire to witness the Sentinels discover the Makers' betrayal. The Cosmic Realm, surprisingly enough, reminded me of my delving into the libraries Hermaeus Mora in Skyrim, instilling that unsettling strangeness into the emotions I felt. I also may have noticed a very similar looking room inside of Bishop Creed's ship, which leads me to believe that potentially the ship will at some point be converted into the Fortress of Doom that we occupy in Doom Eternal. Environments feature semi-destructible objects, which lead to a greater sense of immersion. Overall, id's world building is proven to be masterclass in this game. But while the setting is more grandiose than before, the biggest actor in all of this is the Slayer's newest tool, the Shield Saw. The beast of a weapon, and yes, it is a weapon more often than not, is one of the best implementations of a shield mechanic I've seen in video games, hands down. Make no mistake, the meat hook hasn't been removed. This is the new meat hook, as it provides a massive amount of mobility. through the shield bash, allowing you to disengage from and re-engage into a fight from astounding distances. Furthermore, it can be thrown upon attaining the saw attachment in Chapter 2, allowing you to rip through the hordes of basic fodder and pop the metal shields of shield shoulders from a distance to set up a resource restack in quick fashion, keeping the active resource management alive in Doom. The shield also allows you to block incoming projectiles and melee strikes from your opponents, though if the attack is red, it takes damage and goes on cooldown once enough damage is dealt, leaving you quite vulnerable. Attacks that are green in color can be parried using the shield, opening up opportunities to strike back with your 3 melee options, or the arsenal you acquire throughout the game. All of this combined makes the shield the most powerful item in the Slayer's kit outside of the BFC. I did experience a bug with the shield twice across all of my playtime, where I would throw my shield at an enemy, have something interfere with the throw, causing the shield to appear to be in my hand when it actually wasn't, preventing me from blocking or parrying attacks. Though simply throwing the shield again corrected this, and it recalled the actual shield to me and resumed its normal functionality. While the shield is currently the star of the show, Doom the Dark Ages gives the player access to 3 melee weapons to strike enemies with while engrossed in the chaos of battle. Each comes with its own slew of upgrades, granting them a unique ability. However, the melee weapons all share the ability to restack your ammo supply, and since melee attacks will naturally be strung into your head-on encounters with heavy and super heavy demons, making the active resource management concerning ammo far less intrusive than Chainsaw and Doom Eternal, addressing player feedback on the previous combat loop in an admittedly clever way. The rest of the arsenal, admittedly, seems to take less of a priority of use in the combat loop, but rest assured the new weapons are powerful in their own right. Each weapon class minus the Reaver Chainshot and the BFC comes with 2 variations that each have their own abilities similar to the melee option. My favorite of these is between the Cycler, which gives you the ability to buff your damage against targeted enemies and spread the effect of the buff upon expiration of your enemies, and the Shredder, which turns your enemies into a pincushion that explodes upon parrying a melee strike or throwing your shield at the enemy, dealing extra damage to the pincushion enemy and anything within an AoE of the explosion. In most of the early access footage we saw from those invited by id to play a preview demo, many of them expressed that the weapons work best when you are up close and personal, and this remains true for many of the weapons, but some of your arsenal has extended range and may carry an ability that encourages close encounters, such as the rocket launcher's ability to heal you with the splash damage once upgraded. Overall, the weapons are satisfying to use in tandem with all of your other tools, and I have no complaint, as each weapon has its use, which is no longer tied to a use case based off the weak point system we saw in Doom Eternal, leading to much more player freedom within the fun zone of the game. Please note, I'm not saying Doom Eternal limited creativity, but there were members of the community who felt that the fun zone in Doom Eternal roped them into a certain style of playing, and this was a very clever solution to this feedback from id Software. As any of the Doom games will show, the enemy roster and combat encounters make the game just as much as a satisfying arsenal. Combat is frantic at best and outright chaotic at worst, but this has built a masterpiece that tops the standards set by Doom Eternal, as your kit allows you to handle everything that the game throws at you. Enemies now have armored variants that can have said armor superheated by various means, allowing you to break it, to restack your resources, and certain enemy attacks will outright block you from shooting or throwing your shield at the enemy. Enemies that we are familiar with, such as Revenants, have been given new abilities. New enemies grace the roster as well, adding to the combat encounters variation in a way that will keep veteran players on their toes. Then, if that wasn't enough, it brought back older enemies from Doom and Doom 64 in the Imp Stalker, and the now incredibly deadly Nightmare Imp. Some enemies have the ability to summon buff variants of other enemies until you eliminate them, while others act as mini-bosses which grant upgrades to the Slayer upon defeat. One of these mini-boss encounters is the Morale encounter, which renders the target immune to all damage until a certain number of other demons are defeated, creating a variety in the types of encounters that you come across. Lastly, some, not all, levels allow the player to challenge these encounters in the order that they wish to, letting the player set the pace between exploration and combat. I once again must applaud id Software on their brilliant design when it comes to this game. Doom the Dark Ages is admittedly just as intense as Doom Eternal in its own rights, with 22 levels, most of which having playtimes as long, if not longer, than Doom Eternal's levels. However, the combat is broken up with an emphasis on exploration in search of resources to upgrade the Slayer's kit and keep yourself stocked up between fights. Admittedly, the puzzles are simple in nature when found, but are all unique, unlike minigames that have repetitive puzzles padding the playtime. Each one was satisfying to complete and didn't take more than a few minutes at most to get through, and possibly had secrets within secrets, which added to them in a delightful way. Aiding in the search is once again brilliantly implemented automap, which no longer requires an in-game currency to upgrade functionality. It starts off displaying collectible and resource locations with question marks within a wide radius of the Slayer's location on the map, making the search easier and reducing the chance that things will be missed. Furthermore, it added a point of no return marker to each of the areas of a chapter, telling the player that if they progress past those points, they can no longer return to get the things they missed without restarting the level, which tells the player in an intuitive way that they have passed the entrance to a secret area they missed. Finally, Savvy would be proud of id Software, as they have taken the carrot-on-a-stick mentality with the map design, physically allowing the player to see resources and collectibles through walls, atop ledges, and across the map, making the player want to go and find the goodies hidden behind secret doors and breakable walls. Further breaking up the pacing of Doom the Dark Ages are two types of levels that I'm sure by now have been beaten to death with criticism for the gimmicks. The chapters where you pilot the Atlan mechs and the dragon named Sarat. Both sections share the mechanic of using perfect dodges to empower your attacks to deal massive damage, but one of the two does this better. The Atlan mechs are pure spectacle, placing you mainly in boxing matches with titans and periodically giving you one of two weapons to fight back with. The impact of the punches in the destructible environment takes place in a setting that immerses you into the spectacle of it all. But each section has a purpose that grants a sense of urgency or innate desire to accomplish the objective, which is the cherry on top of the spectacle. The dragon sections, however, are far less varied, as you only have the cannons on the dragon's back, which admittedly can get stale, especially with how you spread out the actions on the dragon's back can be. Though it did potentially foresee this, as they made the dragon back sections broken up by ground assaults where you are thrown back into the head-on fights periodically to complete the objectives around the map. Admittedly, I do agree with many of my fellow creators when they say they look forward to being back on the ground. However, id Software shouldn't be discouraged, as what they've built is a good base that can be improved upon, and I look forward to see what the concept becomes. The previous modern Doom titles have placed an emphasis on upgrades, building the power fantasy block by block. These upgrade systems are layered and even have challenges linking to unlocking mastery and further improving the weapons or runes that have mastery challenges tied to them. By comparison, Doom the Dark Ages system for building the Slayer's power has stripped out most of the layers and opted for a much simpler approach, tied behind 3 separate currencies, all of which can be found in-game. And while mastery challenges for weapons are still present within the game, they do not seem to be tied to unlocking an upgrade, but rather unlock a gold skin for that specific weapon upon completion. Thus, they aren't really required for 100% completion or fully upgrading your arsenal, which I appreciate, as I often found remembering the goal of each challenge taxing when dealing with the chaos of combat. Currencies for the upgrades can be found throughout the map or be earned by completing 2 or 3 challenges in each chapter. Once obtained, the player must then find a shrine to purchase upgrades, which can affect everything in the Slayer's kit. While normally a fixed point upgrade system isn't something I prefer, it works well as I often find myself stumbling upon these shrines and immediately checking if I can upgrade something within my arsenal. Finally, I must address the story of the game, which for what it is within the now established lore of Doom, is written well, enough to drive the narrative. It was interesting to witness what I assume is the start of Hell's influence over key players. The plot is most definitely a hero's journey type story as predicted by other members of the Doom community, and sets up the start of the Slayer's medieval saga well. In closing, I cannot recommend this masterpiece enough. Overall, the experience stays engaging and runs extremely well on systems capable of playing it, despite the current controversies over the physical disc and the always online connection or the forced ray tracing. The game has met all my expectations and exceeded them, as is standard with id Software these days. I firmly give this game a 9.5 out of 10, as there are some areas that can be improved upon. Thank you for watching.